Hey folks, this is Mike Luz of Mike Buys Guitars. You can find me on Instagram. Guitar enthusiast and musician. I record music under the name Mercy Wizard. I've got 5 slope shoulders behind me, 3 Gibsons and an Atkin and a pre-war. So we've got a pre-war J on the side here, 2018. Got a 58 Gibson J-50. I have a 1953 Gibson J-45. I have a 1965 Gibson J-50 and an Atkin 43. All of them mahogany back and sides, all of them spruce top. Let's see how they sound. Also all 1 11/16 nut width. So Atkin 43, they're basing this on, I'm guessing by 43, they're basing it on the sort of the darker 40s Gibson sound. I'd also liken it to the later 50s into the 60s Gibson sound, like this 60 feet, 65 or the 58. The 53 and the pre-war are getting, it's sort of a slightly different sound. It's a little bit, there's more volume, it's moving more air, there's more high end and upper mids. It's a sort of a quicker attack when, especially at that in that treble register, you have a quicker attack, and just sort of overall more sort of sound going on. I would say more complexity in the decay. This one is it's just a very punchy sound. It's very down to earth. It's very woody. I'd still describe it as dry. The fit and finish is fantastic. I mean, I think Atkin are kind of unparalleled in their attention to detail. Some of the newer Gibsons you get, they'll be just kind of crud and just sort of spots that they're not sort of like squeaky or like perfect in the finish work. This one is terrific. You know, maybe they're not all like this, but this one is really quite nice. It's the aged version with the crazing all over the body and top. And it's just a really nice guitar. It's very inviting to play. It makes you want to play it. Isn't too loud. It would be a great vocal accompaniment guitar or a songwriting guitar. Or, you know, if you just want a Gibson slope shoulder, this would be a great option. If you saw one, I'd recommend trying one. So let's go from here to the 58 Gibson J-50. Just a quick note on neck shape on the Atkin. It's got a modern C, very round modern C profile. Probably the most similar, I'd say, to the 65 J-50 in that modern sort of slimmer rounded C profile. This 58 Gibson J-50 had the original adjustable bridge replaced with the fixed wooden bone. It's got more of the fuller rounded neck. Some people say baseball. I would not say baseball bat neck on this in terms of curve maybe, but it's not that big. But it is, I'd say, probably the most comfortable of all 5. Yeah, let's see how it sounds. the thinner 50s Gibson frets. Sonically, it's probably slightly quieter, or from this side anyway. You know, as a listener, you'll probably be able to tell better than I can right now. In terms of volume, it feels a little quieter than the Atkin, but it has more upper registers, so it has more upper mids, it has more highs, I'd say. It has a lot of punch, especially when you play single notes. Exceptionally woody sound, I'd say. Exceptionally woody and vintage. You can kind of, definitely been knocked around. It's got all kinds of bumps and bruises. It had a neck reset at some point. Just a really cool vintage sort of knocked around Gibson. And you can kind of hear that in its voice. Not the loudest guitar, certainly not. It's probably overall the quietest of all these guitars, but it gives it a nice intimate sound. And like I said, it's a very woody, warm tone. It's actually very nice for fingerpicking. And actually, I would say it kind of sounds older than it is. I'd kind of peg it for sonically, I'd peg it for maybe a 30s, but it's 58. So they started using kind of heavier bracing in the 50s and then into the 60s. So they're a little heavier. And then as we'll hear, this is the 65 J-50. They're similar, but this specific 65 is there's more top end. It has just a kind of a fuller sound and more is in general pushing more air. So let's hear that one. So this is a 65 J-50. Modern C profile neck, smooth, no V at all. I'd say it's most similar. The Atkin and this one are probably the most similar in terms of the neck feel. Also had its adjustable bridge replaced with a fixed wooden bone saddle, batwing pick guard, which I'm not exactly sure exactly when they started doing it, but 58 has it. This one has it. As you'll see, the 53 has the teardrop, which they were doing in the 40s as well. And then the pre-war has sort of their own take. I guess it's sort of like an amalgamation of the teardrop and the batwing. And the Atkin has the teardrop. So let's see how it sounds. Very sweet sounding guitar. This one is louder than both of those, than the Atkin or the 58 J-50. Just sort of overall more high end, more whoosh, more oomph, but not as much mid content as the pre-war or the 53 J-45. Slower attack for sure. Part of that is the strings. The strings are a bit they're moving towards the dead side. They've definitely been used quite a bit. Probably older than either of the 58 or the Atkin strings. The Atkin actually has Monels on it, Martin Monels, the retro ones they have. So it's giving it a slightly different tone. The 58 has probably 4 or 5 month old phosphor bronze on it. And yeah, these are probably phosphor bronze. Like I said, they're a little older. But overall, it's kind of, this is what Gibson was sort of doing with these especially in the mid 60s into the later 60s before the Northern era. It's just kind of it's a spongier, like I like to say, it's a spongier sound. It's not quite as loud. Not quite as much mid content. You know, again, if you're a strummer, singer, songwriter, you'll love these. But I probably, you know, in general, they're sort of not recommended for, you know, flat picking, even though, you know, they hold their own. They're great guitars. I love this guitar. I love early 60s, the J-45, J-50s from the 60s. The sound in general is great. I had the narrow nut ones. I have a 66 B25 with the narrow nut that I love, that I played for years. But these days I just like the wider nut, that's all. But they all kind of have that nice 60s sound. With a sort of spectrum there. I played a 61 J-50 that was a little drier, or sort of a little more of that quick up mid attack that you get from the pre-war or from the 53. So let's actually jump to the pre-war now, and we'll end with the 53 J-45. So first things first, this is a very light guitar. It's the lightest guitar of all of these. That's, I think, part of their MO. At pre-war, they make them very light bracing, very thin tops. This one is based on a J-35, which a lot of people sort of revere as something that sort of Gibson just got right early on. So this is kind of based on that. What else? Yeah, again, 111/16 nut. These are all 111/16 nut. All these guitars. Mahogany backside, spruce top. This one's an Addy top, torrified. There's an aging process to kind of approximate a vintage sound. Neck carve is, they call it a C to V. I've had their D, which they describe sort of similarly, but this one I'd say is a little bit more rounded than the one on the D, which is like a D18. Super comfortable neck, actually. Yeah, let's see how it sounds. So lightest, loudest, definitely the loudest of all of them. I'd say the most sort of overall just sound coming out of it. It's just a very loud guitar, very out there. You know, there's no risk of, this would be a great flat picking sort of banjo killer guitar. But yeah, again, super dry sound. That's what they're sort of known for. The D I had sounded very similar. I would definitely put more of a, you know, in my experience, I'd say it leans more of kind of a Martin sound. Although I'm sure there's older Gibsons that sound like this as well. Here, there's 53 J-45, which I'd say is pretty similar. But pre-war in general, they make mostly Martin type guitars, and so I think there's a bit of that imbued in the sound of this guitar. Which, to say, again, not to say that it doesn't sound Gibson-y. It definitely has, you know, similarity to some of these earlier Gibsons, and some of the really dry ones. Even some of the 90s ones I played have a bit more of that dry sound. Really just amazing guitar. You know, this is a really, I mean, if you can find a pre-war, scoop it up, try it, you know, try it for a while. They're just really amazing. And this one's actually for sale right now. Like 58, use it for sale. Find me Mike Buys Guitars. Let me know what's what. But it is not without reserve. This is a really incredible instrument. It's the kind of guitar that I'm sure that I will regret selling. But it's one of these things that, you know, I'd rather someone actually be playing and enjoying it than sort of be, you know, hoarding all these slope shoulders. So it's cool to have it for a bit, but yeah, if you're interested, let me know. So let's finish on a 1953 Gibson J-45, which to me, to my ears, this and that one are probably the most similar as far as this light. You know, it's the second lightest. This J-45 above this lineup moves you know, sort of about as much air. I'd say this and that one are kind of on even keel. This one has a bit more of the new guitar snap and punch, whereas that one has a bit more of the gauzy kind of vintage Gibson thing going on. So let's hear that sounds. So yeah, again, picking it up right away. It's a little bit heavier than the pre-war, but this is a pretty special guitar. So this is an exquisite shape for a 1953. Came with the original case, came with the hang tag, barely any wear on the back of the neck. There's just some sort of odd scuffs here and there. It seems like someone sort of played it really aggressively, you know, maybe for a day, and then just put it in their case and left it in the closet for the rest of the, you know, for 70 years or whatever it is. But this one is just, it's terrific. So it's, so neck carve wise, this one has, it's like the 58. It's probably the most similar to the 58, but it's just got a slightly quicker curve away from the fretboard on either end. So it's definitely not a V, but it sort of goes in that direction because the edges are just a little bit quicker, the angle. So let's see how it sounds. So yeah, I'd say this one kind of sums up what all these are doing. This is kind of the goal. I'd say this is the gold standard. It kind of has a bit of everything. It's got the sort of whooshiness of the pre-war or the 65 even, and they're quite different. The 65 is a little darker. The pre-war is a little sharper, mid-range, a little quicker attack, and this kind of splits the difference. Tons of just sound flying out of it. I can feel it. It vibrates a lot. It's shooting a lot of sound. Again, most similar to the pre-war in that regard. And then I'd say the 65, 58, and the Atkin are sort of most similar in just having a bit of a darker sound. just not as much volume. The 65 is louder than either the Atkin or the 58. And then, so the big question in the room here is Atkin or pre-war. So let's compare those A to B. Let's just focus in on those here at the end. So coming back to the Atkin, we'll just do a quick A/B of the Atkin and the pre-war, and I'll give you my quick opinion. So that's the Atkin 43, and here's the pre-war J. Pre-war J. So my quick thoughts. I think the pre-war wins the sound battle. I think it's a better sounding instrument. I think it has more volume, has more mid-range. I could see how someone would prefer the Atkin. I actually personally prefer the style of the sound that the Atkin is going for, what I call a sort of spongy, darker sound. For me, it's a little bit more comfortable sonically. It's a little less harshness. You could conceivably get something kind of harsh from the tone that's coming out of the pre-war, but I think it does sound better. It's got a richer sound, super touch sensitive, and like I said, it's great for flat. It'd be a great flat picker. Cuts through. There's just no lack of sound whatsoever. Whereas I think with the Atkin, I do when I'm playing it, whereas I like it, I do kind of wish there's a little more sound coming out of it, and there's a little bit more responsiveness. Fit and finish wise, I would say the Atkin sort of feels and looks like an actually more expensive instrument than the pre-war does. I think the pre-war, which I really like about their company, is I think they're very utilitarian, and it's very much a tool. It's very much something that is, it's simple, sort of in how they're trying to present it, and the whole thing, and saying, this is a tool, this is meant to be played, this is about how it sounds. Everything that was done to this was made to make it sound a certain way and give a certain overall utilitarian sort of effect. Whereas the Atkin gives me a feeling of there's a bit more of almost a luxury component. It feels very fine. It feels very nice. Impeccable finish job. The aging work is just really incredible, the way it looks. I'd give it to Atkin in the sort of cosmetics and sort of overall niceness, I guess. I don't know, whatever you want to say. It's just very subjective. But for me, I just feel like it's hard to even compare them. I think because the builders are going for such sort of different things. But I do think the pre-war wins the sound game, the Atkin wins the finish game, and sort of the object the fineness of the object kind of thing. Because it's so light, and it's so Spartan, sort of the finish job is so Spartan. I do kind of, it's kind of funny. It reads vintage. Because a lot of these older vintage guitars, they'll be really light. There's no binding. There's barely any Ivoroid or iridescent stuff on it. It just doesn't look blinged out or fancy whatsoever. To certain people, just sort of reading from the outside, you're kind of like, why does this cost that much money? And then you play it and you're like, oh no, I get it. It's a tool. It's actually perfect for what it's the idea. It's perfect for the sound, the feel, overall, just exquisite work. Which I think is sort of the difference. I would apply exquisite sort of to the finish and sort of the balance of the Atkin, not sort of the overall effect. I would say there is a gruffness sort of overall to the pre-war. It's sort of like I'm saying, it's a tool. It's kind of rough, although at the same time it is finished sort of very well. The relic job is actually awesome, but yeah, just it's going for a different thing. So that's sort of my overall take on that. If you're interested in Gibson slope shoulders, I think that the pre-war and the Atkins are sort of different takes on the same concept, and are actually really interestingly, they sort of contrast with each other actually really well. And I think in this video it's sort of demonstrated how the Gibsons themselves kind of run that spectrum. And in the case of like the 53, it's actually kind of bringing these two together. It's kind of the cross section of this pre-war and the Atkin. So again, my name is Mike Luz, Mike Buys Guitars. You can find me on Instagram. I think I mentioned this, but if I didn't, the 58 is for sale and this is for sale. So let me know. You can take advantage of the fact that I just cannot keep all the guitars that I come in possession of. Skip the wait, grab this pre-war. Or the 58 is sort of priced to sell. It's got a little bit of a stain on the back from a humidity packet. But those are typically, it's usually just some kind of oil-based, natural, like a food grade kind of thing. So it's not like it's something toxic or anything. So that's why it's a little bit less than you'd sort of expect a 58 to be. Hit the like button, as they say, and hope you enjoyed it. See ya.